Got traffic there. Last there, just take it up to the departure end of the runway, then a left turn and a left downwind. Cessna over the threshold, coming up on the white dot, at or beyond the white dot, left turn first available. I got a high wind coming up on about a half-mile final, clear to land at or beyond. Traffic on the left face, you're following a Cessna down, low off your left. Square it up just a little bit, and then we're going to get you in. Start your descent, though. Start your descent on the base. Traffic on final, give me follow on base. Base traffic, start turning toward the numbers now. High wing coming up on quarter-mile final, take it all the way down to the green. Cessna taxiing on the green, expedite down to the next hard surface. Get me some speed, there you go, 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 go fast. This is going to be good. I got traffic on a mile final, you're following traffic ahead and to your right. High wing coming up on the threshold, take it all the way down to the green dot.
5 Charlie Sierra, 2 mile final.
A mile final, turn north, and we're going to just make you, we're going to bring you back around. Jet traffic's coming up on about a mile and a half final, runway 9er clear to land.
Okay, all right, let's listen up, guys. If you're on final for runway 9, I want you to offset to the left. I got a jet that's landing on runway 9. The jet's cleared to land runway 9 if you can make it. If not, just continue straight ahead. It looks like you're going around for the jet. That's fine, that's fine, that's fine.
Oh, we had one right in front of us, sir.
Dragger. Let's see, what we got, a tricycle. Tricycle, put it down. Tricycle, put it down. Tricycle, put it down. Tail dragger, down to the green dot, then a left turn. Short final here, you clear to land on 9, all the way to the white dot, go down to the white dot. Find somebody to follow out here. Canard, just come to the runway and I might have to just send you around. That'll be fine. And for the jet, you just want to stay in this pattern or you want to go back out for an instrument approach?
Stay in a pattern, Charlie Sierra.
All right, just stay with me here for a minute. And my tail dragger, let's see, over the numbers, go down to the green. And Canard's going to have to go around. Canard, go around. Canard, go around. Canard, go around. And my high wing here over the runway, keep it airborne. Keep it airborne. You do not descend. Do not descend. You got a fast guy behind you. Do not descend. There you go. Keep it airborne. Keep it airborne. As soon as the guy behind you gets slowed down, I'm going to put you down. So keep it airborne. The one that just passed the white dot, make a left turn on the hard surface. All right, my high wing tail dragger, you can put it down now. You can put it down now. And Charlie Sierra, let me get you about a mile off. Let's see, Charlie Sierra, I lost. There you are. Make a left-hand turn. I'll try to resequence you here on the downwinds. We'll see how it looks. Short final, you're clear to land runway 9 on the white dot. Clear to land on the white dot. There you go. And the tricycle left on the hard surface and follow the flagman. Welcome. Thanks for being part of the show. And let's see, just find somebody to follow out follow on the final. And as you get close to the runway, if it's not going to work, we're going to send you around and then try to resequence you. Now, who else got sent around that's not back on the downwind? The Canard?
Yeah, Canard.
All right, Canard, there's a Gulfstream up there that went around too. I just lost sight of him, but you're going to make kind of a left-hand turn and stay low. I think Charlie Sierra, what's your altitude?
3,200.
Okay, that'll be fine. Just maintain VFR. I don't know what else is up there above you. Probably most everybody's down here, so just make a left-hand turn. We'll try to get you back here.
Canard's got the jet in sight.
Okay, the RV, maybe an RV-10, whatever's here on final. Keep your speed up and go all the way down to the, aim for the green dot for me. Actually, keep your speed up. There's a guy behind you. Aim for the green dot, and I'm sure that's plenty of room for you to land on runway 9. You're clear to land on runway 9. Number 2, you're going to go down to the white dot. Follow the white dot. Actually, you know what? That's 1,500 feet. You're going to land at the white dot. The spacing looks adequate here. 2 guys on final. You're kind of tight there. Keep each other in sight, and you're going to aim for the white dot. If it's not going to work, we'll come up with a plan B. We might have to send you around. The second guy behind you out there in about a 2-mile final. Are you slow enough to be able to follow that guy in front of you? You need to go around.
Yeah, follow.
Well, I probably shouldn't ask that because I had about 5 guys answer me, so I should know better than that. After 35 years, you would think, right? All right, so let me see. The guy who's number 1, it's number 1. What kind of airplane is he? An RV type. All right, RV type. Keep it airborne for me. Keep it airborne. And I got a fast guy behind you. The number 2 guy over the trees there. Go ahead and put it down on the numbers. Put it down on the numbers. My first guy just coming up on the numbers at the over the grass at the numbers. I want you to keep it.
T-minus 1 minute and counting.
Hello.
Four, three, two, one.
Hello!
Hello.
Hello, everybody, have we got a bloody good show for you tonight? So in tonight's show, we will be bringing you news of Gloucester's latest set of restrictions. That's not so much good. There's more bad news for George Brady's G100UL fuel that we'll be telling you about. There's a Piper AD that means if you own a vintage Piper, you can spend some more money on looking after it. On the positive side, however, British Airways has launched its fully funded pilots training scheme for 2025. That's bloody good news if you get onto that. There are a bunch of happy winners after last week's Dawn to Dusk dinner, which we're bringing you information about. And Aero, that one of the best shows on earth, is just 55 days away. Plus, sitting in the virtual green room, we have Grant Shapps, erstwhile MP, Minister without Portfolio, Secretary of State for Transport, Home Secretary, and Secretary of State for Defence. Grant will be joining us right after the news, so we're going to get on with that. But just before I head over to the SkyDemon tip and say thank you to SkyDemon, I'm going to remind you to do us all a favour, subscribe, like, comment, all that good YouTube stuff. So thank you very much, SkyDemon, for supporting the live stream. Without you, it would be darn sight harder. Here is your tip for tonight.
Hi, I'm Tim from SkyDemon. Welcome to this week's top tip.
In the latest version of SkyDemon, you can now customize the trail left behind by your aircraft on the map while you're flying. We've added the options under Setup, Navigation Options, then Aircraft Size and Colors. You can choose between having a trail of breadcrumbs, like this, or a solid line, like this. If you scroll down a little, you'll see that you can also change the colour. I might like a bright blue line, or some brown coloured breadcrumbs. You'll see your new trail the next time you go flying.
For our full user manual, go to skydemon.aero and choose Help and Support.
Now,
I feel that with Tim's new theme tune there, it was almost like it was like a play school. Tell us a story. It's like
it was a bit.
Yes, the plane has.
Window today.
Yes.
We have the dog pee tray. Sorry, the dotted line trayer.
Yes.
Which, frankly, the only
I think
people
you could customize it more. Actually,
yeah,
you should be able to customize it to look like burning banknotes or bits of aeroplane dropping off as you fly along.
What type of aeroplane do you fly?
Well, as you will know, Ed.
Right. Anyway.
Yes, and on burning banknotes note, let's bring in our weather forecaster. I'm not sure why that was appropriate, but
I was going to say, what are you trying to say?
I don't know, Simon.
Is that we get paid whatever the weather?
Yeah, you're completely priceless.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. I think it's because it's the only job you can do 7 days a week, get it wrong every day, and they still pay you at the end of it. That's the reason I do it.
AI can never take over.
Never. Should we take a look at what's going on?
Yes.
Go on then. Let's have a few charts. There we go. Now, make the most of tomorrow if you can, is going to be my message this week. Tomorrow looks to be the best day of the weekend. We've got a front that's coming in. This has been really messy all week, trying to forecast how far east this front would come. Battles between models all week as to exactly what was going to happen. Still some uncertainty for the weekend, but I'm happier about what we're seeing tomorrow. So actually, for most of us tomorrow, skip forward there. For most of us tomorrow, looks like it's actually going to be a pretty decent day. You see here on the cloud-based forecast, those white colours telling us the base is typically up above about 4,000 feet. We're going to be looking at a reasonable visibility as well once morning mist patches clear away. So I think tops on those clouds, about 7,000 feet. So a decent sort of day, apart from Cross Island, Southwest Wales, getting to Southwest England, where, as you can see pretty quickly, the cloud is going to be lowering and it's going to be bringing us outbreaks of rain. Now, this front will move eastwards during the course of Saturday. It becomes weaker as it does so. However, it kind of leaves a trail of breadcrumbs behind it because it's going to leave low cloud, mist, drizzle, I think, across many parts of eastern and southern Scotland, across much of Ireland, across much of Wales, parts of southwest England as well. And I think this cloud ceiling forecast for midday on Saturday pretty well has it nailed. You see here really low cloud across eastern coast, across southern parts of Scotland, low cloud across Ireland, getting into western parts of Wales, but better across the far south of England. So the further south you go, the better it's going to become. Give you an idea of bases across much of the northern Midlands, northern England, across Ireland, southern parts of Scotland, bases around 1,000 to 1,500 feet. Tops probably getting up at around 10 to 12,000 feet and quite misty and murky. Across southern parts of England, bases eventually lifting to between about 2,000 and 4,000 feet, and the tops up at around 8,000 feet. So certainly south is better. So yeah, I think that chart probably nails it for Saturday. And then for Sunday, another weak front coming into the west. It leaves this residual rain for western and southern parts of Scotland, across northern England, across parts of the Midlands and East Anglia. And again, I think this cloud seeding forecast is probably about there. 1,000 to 2,000 foot bases for much of the area you see there. Tops at around about 8 to 10,000 feet. Outbreaks of rain with it as well. But once more, southern England, probably by then the far south of Wales, perhaps southwest England as well, seeing higher bases, better visibility, bases about 3,000 feet, tops at around 6,000 feet. But a lot of this is still on a knife edge as we battle high pressure to the east, which has got all that winter cold air associated with it, and then lower pressure in the Atlantic, bringing in the milder springtime or early springtime weather that we're currently waiting for. So, as I say, Friday looks to be the best of the days. If you want to be able to forecast yourself, get yourself along to Aviation Weather School Part 1, my next online course, which is going to be presented live by me. You can't have everything, can you? Is going to be on the Tuesday evenings, the 18th and 25th of March, between 6:30 p.m. and 9 p.m. on each of those evenings. I know many of you are already booking up, so if you want to come along, go to weatherschool.co.uk and book your place now. Have a great and a safe flying weekend, and I'll see you next week. Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye.
Look at that.
We're back. We're back.
Endless slickness.
Right, it's news time. Time for the news. So in the news, I'm up first this week, and the first bit of news is Gloucester. So it turns out that Gloucestershire, Staverton, whatever you want to call it, had 9 air proxies over the last 12 months, 6 of which took place in the ATZ, with a fairly serious one happening in January. So there was an email that went out to people and said, we've sat down with the CA, because we have to report these things to the CA, and they've kind of suggested or told us to do this. So Gloucester now has a whole bunch of restrictions, which is not ideal for an airfield. So first of all, departures. Good news is you don't need a slot to leave IFR. That's great. Approaches, you can only cope with one IFR approach every 15 minutes. And should you be doing some training, multiple approaches, you've got to book a slot per approach. 2 VFR departures every 15 minutes, 2 VFR arrival departures every 15 minutes. And how many in the circuit at a time? Anyone want to guess?
I dread to think.
None?
A maximum of 1. Yep, no more than one person. One person in the circuit. Anyone? I learned to fly at Gloucester. There was definitely a lot more people than 1 in the circuit at the time then. Helicopter VFR movements, 2 every 15 minutes again, and 1 at a time in the circuit again, plus a whole load of other stuff. No visiting circuits between 10 and 2. Training approaches need to be booked. No circuits during cross runway. Blah 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 blah. Don't book ahead.
Airplanes also have to be wrapped up in day glow jackets now to fly around the circuit, or not?
Absolutely. And plus, there's published. If you are on the distribution list, they have published a kind of read-only spreadsheet with all the bookings going forward, so you can see when you can find a slot and hopefully get yourself a slot book. So those of you that have been around a while will be aware that at some stage in the past there were probably about 25% more movements than there are at the moment. I mean, Gloucester, I was going to say Gloucester's a pretty busy place, but Gloucester was a pretty busy place before this.
Was it 2016? It peaked at 83,000 movements.
It was 83 or 87. I can't remember. It was a lot. I think it was probably about, at its peak, it was probably 25% busier than it is now, roughly speaking. And they had maybe they had a few more people, but it was slick. And now it's going to be interesting. I feel. I mean, if you're running a school, of which there are a few at Gloucester, and you've got 1 in the circuit, that's going to be. I mean, I expect everybody who's working for a flying school to be bored within a week, because they'd have all pulled their hair out. It's just going to be. yeah, not a good sign. So that all starts tomorrow.
Okay, Linda Griffith, who I know used to be base there, said used to have 5 Tomahawks plus Cherokee during night training at Gloss back in the day. Never a safety issue.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I don't know. There's no kind of word as to how permanent this is and all sorts of other things, but it's clearly going to be a bit of a significant change. And certainly there's some big professional schools there as well, and they are going to struggle to cope with the throughput they've got.
That's not great.
No,
Also,
indeed.
Yeah. Also not great.
Also not great, right? I'll pick up the cue there, Ed. Also not great is the fact that Cirrus Aircraft has come out and said don't use GAMI G100 unleaded avgas in any of their piston aircraft, or for that matter, any other in unleaded fuels. They say using unleaded fuel will invalidate the warranty. They say Cirrus says they have evidence that GAMI fuel degrades seals in the fuel tank, which allows leaks and which can affect the airframes. This is a big fight between GAMI and Cirrus. GAMI have come back and said that Cirrus applies a rarely used type of aerospace sealant in certain places in the fuel tanks. GAMI, in fact, are quoted as saying, Cirrus may be the only aircraft manufacturer that uses this particular PTE sealant for a fuel tank. For the last 75 years or more, the gold standard has been the use of something called polysulfide, PSD sealants, which, whatever way you look at it, it's a huge slap in the face for GAMI, which has an STC, that's a supplemental type certificate, allowing the fuel to be used in many piston aircraft, including those needing 100 octane, such as a Cirrus. Whatever the truth, it's a blow towards the move towards unleaded fuels. Lots of aircraft that can run on fuels such as unleaded 91 or 94, but for higher compression engines, 100 octanes, and that GAMI fuel was the only one on the market at the moment.
Yep, it's not. I wouldn't like to be in George Bradley's shoes. There's a lot of doubt and worry that's been caused. And I think the EAA have also come out and said, beware that a lot of the materials used in experimental aircraft are not the same as in certified aircraft. So beware with any unleaded fuel that you stick in your engine.
Yeah.
There you go.
And there's a threat to 100 octane fuel as well, isn't there, Ian?
Well, so basically, there's an EU rule that comes into place in the EU in May this year that says that TEL, tetraethyl lead. I think we've been through this before. Basically, you can't basically transport it or refine it and stuff like that. The ECAH has issued 3 opinions to say that these people should be able to continue doing it until 2032, which kind of aligns us with the US. But the EU has yet to rule on that. And if it doesn't rule on that before the rule comes into place, then that will effectively be no avgas in May, or at least it will have to be imported avgas in May. And can you imagine how much that would cost? Would it be cheap to ship my avgas in from America? Nope. So, yeah, so interesting times. Fingers crossed that one works out there.
Yes, definitely. I've got some news on it's on an AD that's been on the radar for owners of thousands of fabric pipers for a couple of years now. And this week, the FAA finally issued this AD, which was prompted by 2 rudder post failures on 2 float-equipped pipers, a PA-11 and a PA-12, back in 2020 and 21. So the FAA have been considering this since 2023, and Piper owners and various groups have lobbied for a change to have it only applied to higher power aircraft or ones fitted with the beacons, like you saw on that failed fin. Piper had weighed in and issued a service bulletin in December 2022, where they said they considered action as mandatory compliance. And now the FAA have come out and said, okay, we're going to do this. It's going to affect 4 groups. And it's across J3, J4, PA11, PA15, 16, all the variants of PA18, the Piper Pacer and the Tri-Pacer. The 4 categories are they are for aircraft with a rudder post light and more than 150 horsepower. You have to comply within 2 years. If you've got an aeroplane that has either a rudder post light or an engine that's 150 horse, then you get 5 years. Category 2, rudder post light or the 150 horse engine. That's you must comply within 3 years. If you've got Category 3 aeroplane, and that is you don't have a rudder mounted beacon, but you do have an engine that's 150 to 100 horse, you get 5 years. And they're deciding everything else, so no light and less than 100 horse, you've got 10 years to comply. So this is going to affect a lot of aircraft. If you've got obviously UKCA will have to decide what they're going to do in terms of applying it. If you've got an LA permanent aircraft, which will be pretty much most of the aircraft affected in the UK, it's also waiting to see if the LA decide to mandate compliance, because if you read the AD, it's clear that the LA had a lot of objections, so maybe they won't. But anyway, that's going to affect thousands of aeroplanes.
I think if I had an aeroplane like that, I'd just get on and do it.
Yeah, I've got an aeroplane that's in the affected list, and I've spent a bit of time scrutinising my rudder, which doesn't have a fin top beacon, and the engine is 100 horsepower. So and it was taken apart and shot blasted in 1987. So I will. Where there's doubt, there is obviously you want to try and rectify that. So
yeah.
But certainly the two failures that are highlighted are on high horsepower seaplanes. So they've got usually they've got a very pitchy prop, and those beacons on top of the fins. It's a lot, it wasn't originally designed for that. So
no. Well, after all that bad news, here's some good news. British Airways, one of the few airlines that's offering a fully funded airline pilot training scheme. They call it the Speedbird Pilot Academy, and the window for applications for the 2025 intake has just opened this week. It's only open until the 21st of February. 200 places are available. So if anyone's thinking about it, they need to put together a really good application. And on the British Airways website, there are some hints and tips, more than just hints and tips. There's a whole chunk of information about how to prepare. It's a really big deal because it opens up the career of an airline pilot to a whole bunch of people who simply could never have afforded it or even thought about it. And there's a guaranteed job, so long as you pass and do the course, there's a guaranteed job with British Airways as a first officer at the end of it. British Airways is going to outsource the training, as they have done before, to approved training organisations known as ATOs. And this year it's with Skyborne Airline Academy at Gloucester and FT Jerez, who are at Jerez in Spain.
Yeah, I'm guessing there was an advert for some Skyborne employees down at Bournemouth. So I think they may well be considering opening a base at Bournemouth because, frankly, if they've got a bunch of their 200 cadets to get through, they're gonna struggle with one in the circuit at any one time.
Wow. Yeah.
Linda says, "Let's hope Skyborne at Gloucester can get the necessary slots for training their students."
Yeah. Yes. I wonder. We'll see. Right.
Me.
Ed.
So Belgium's JMB aircraft, renowned for its blazingly fast 200-knot VL3, but they've got another aeroplane added to their collection now. That's the Stamp of the Dongen SV4B, which you all know as the microlight Stomp, produced by Ultralight Concept. JMB has acquired 50% of Ultralight Concept. And a few people were wondering, would this affect the aeroplane coming to the UK? Because there's someone looking at bringing the JMB VL3 to the UK. There's also a different group looking at bringing the Stomp to the UK. I did get in touch with Chris Kirk of Stomp Aircraft UK after hearing the JMB news, and he says, don't panic. He said, JMB are working in partnership with Ultralight Concepts as a distributor, but Stomp Aircraft UK remain the sole UK distributor, so there's no changes for the UK market. And excitingly, Chris says we're in the very final stages of current type approval and hope to have an update from the BMA within the next few weeks. So
that's good.
Cool.
Right. Well, if you were with us last week, you will know that Ian wasn't, because Ian was off at Pooley's Dawn to Dusk Awards celebrating some really, really impressive aviation adventures. So who took the top spot this year? In first place, once again, is our dear friend Derek Pake with Kate Turner, and a theme of what have the Redmonds ever done for us? They also won the long distance medal, covering 1,182 nautical miles. In second place were Nicholas Rogers and Mike Roberts, who were celebrating 60 years of the Red Arrows. And joint third were Nick Orchard, also of this parish, and the trio of Ian Briley, Cheryl Prax, and John Whitlock. And Nick also won the Bonnie Trophy. The fantastic competition is in the 61st year now, I think, if I could do my maths right, and entries are already open for this year.
Fantastic. And I saw Cheryl in the comments.
I saw Cheryl in the comments, yeah.
I saw Cheryl at the Dawn to Dusk Awards dinner.
Well, you win.
And the food was better there than it is in my desk tonight. But there you go.
And is Derek allowed to take part again next year?
Absolutely. Everyone's allowed. Everyone should take part. It's a really fantastic event. Costs you nothing to enter. You can win some money. You can have a great evening at the RAF Club. Just get on and do it. What are you doing with your lives? Go and find some interesting stuff to do.
And
this is one of them.
It's a great opportunity to do some flying for a reason.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think it's a really nice competition because you can actually just pick your own theme.
Yeah.
And basically just do what you like.
Yeah. And do you know what? Being run effectively by poolies, there are lots of very, very, very nice people involved.
Yes. Yes. Very nice people.
The best competition in aviation, maybe.
Yeah. And the judges are a great bunch as well, right here.
They're amazing, and I hear that they're easily bribed with curly whirlies.
Except for Mr. Rant, I hear that he's nicknamed.
Mr. Rant?
Mr. Rant, yes.
I don't know who that is, Ed.
No.
No. Anyway.
Yeah, Aero's only 56 days away, and we'll be ramping up our look at what might be going on at the show. We've been looking at the exhibitor list, and we did spot that Kawasaki are on that. And you might think that's a little bit unusual for an aviation show, but we wonder if they might have some engine news. Of course, it could be related to the hybrid side because they are partners to Volt Aero. So that will be an interesting one to watch.
Absolutely, absolutely. Right. Last week, when I was away, you spoke a little about the low-level route, which in Manchester, which is going to become the Northwest Transit Corridor, I think. So just heads up, next week's live stream, we've got the master that is Darren Lewington. He'll be giving everyone a briefing, tell you everything you ever wanted to know about the new Northwest Transit Corridor. So there you go. Quick club news from you, Annabelle.
Yep, so if you want to head northwest and you're a club member, then this month's free landings are alongside Eastshot, Crosland Moor and Deanthorpe. If you're a club member, you also get access to the webinars. Coming up in a couple of weeks on the 25th of February, we have Ed Bellamy talking to us about carb icing and other piston engine icing. And remember, you can access the full webinar archive. Last month, Simon Keeling talked us through some winter weather tips, and just before Christmas, Mark Greenfield told us almost everything he knows about forced landings. Tomorrow, of course, you will all be aware it is Valentine's Day, and to help you celebrate your true love, which of course is flying, we're going to give you 25% off monthly and annual club memberships. So if you're not a member, and I'd be really surprised if you're not already, but if you're not, you can use the code Valentine25 when you sign up. And remember, if you enjoy watching us all make idiots out of ourselves, then please like, comment and subscribe to the channel.
Absolutely, absolutely. Right, I think we have successfully rushed through the SkyDemon tip, rushed through the weather, rushed through the news, rushed through the club promo. It's got to be time for Grant Shapps. So let's bring him onto the stage. Let's work this over the... Whoa, how did that happen? I don't know how that happened. There you go. Grant, hello. Hello.
Good evening.
Very
Evening,
much
hi.
for joining us. Right, so where's my introduction? There it is. Yeah, so I know you own and fly your own aircraft, an NRED Saratoga, which no doubt we'll come back to. And obviously you're best known for your political career, as I said, MP, Minister without portfolio, not quite sure what that is, but anyway, we'll come back to that. Secretary of State for Transport, Home Secretary, Secretary of State for Defence, all sorts of other bits and pieces. But clearly, for this audience, it's your time at the Department of Transport and your work with general aviation that's kind of kind of the bit that's interesting to us. So before we get to let me just scroll up here and find my little video. There you go. Before we get to your own flying and other stuff, I thought we'd kick off by having a chat about this. There you go. That was a little graphic that we did ages ago, and this is actually the prop that we made in order to film that. This is the.
Not that you should be scared, Grant. That Ian.
I'm none the wiser. I have absolutely no recollection what that's about. So you're going to tell us.
The best place in the world for general aviation, and I'll play it again so you can have a look, and you'll recognise everybody in the screen. I'm in the model.
Yes. Best place in the world for general aviation.
Stephen Hillier, Richard Moriarty,
Robert Courts.
Robert Courts,
who was aviation minister. Yeah,
right.
After that, actually, yeah.
Yeah, so it was after that. I mean, it was, to be honest, it was more of a comedy prop than it was a historically accurate prop. But yeah, so I guess we should really kick off with kind of saying how do you feel that kind of went, and how far. Clearly, it's a long journey to become the best place in the world for general aviation. How far along the road can we get?
So it was actually the all-party parliamentaries group idea, which was a parliamentary group that I set up with somebody who I don't think was on there, whose name will come back to me in a second. Anyways, the group itself pushed the government to say that we should be the best country in the world for general aviation. And the group itself had the advantage of having a vast number of MPs and lords signed up to it. So these all party parliamentary groups, they exist on every subject under the sun. We made this the biggest and best in that particular parliament. I think I'm right in saying it was the 2015 parliament. And the government agreed that we should adhere to that target. I think that's the genesis of it, but it may also be the case that it may have come a bit earlier, because you were asking about what's a minister without portfolio do. In my case, actually, it was my ticket, if you like, to be in the cabinet. So the minister without portfolio is often in the cabinet. In my particular case, as a party chairman, I was Conservative Party chairman. But actually, I had to then earn my living, as it were, around the cabinet table. And one of the things I took a lot of interest in was deregulation, the way that aviation was regulated. And I was given the task, or perhaps I just took the opportunity, to find ways to try to make aviation, and general aviation in particular, more attractive, more compelling, more interesting for people to get into the business. It's a great STEM business, and I think it may have come. I think best place in the world may have come from that era, which was more 2012 to 2015. Then there was the all-party group, and then, of course, as you rightly say, I became Transport Secretary, and I had the opportunity to push this even further, because I genuinely believe, and I still do, we need to attract the next generation into aviation. Brilliant to hear that British Airways news about training pilots. But for some reason, this country has got a really blind spot about aviation, and it thinks it can all be done elsewhere and we'll still somehow get the benefits. And that's the thing we're trying to fight.
So if you, because I remember actually the other person who maybe started the APPG with you, I can't remember his name, but isn't he kind of like Lord Byron?
Oh yes, that's right. You're absolutely right. Well done. Yeah, Lord Byron Davis. Yeah,
that's it. Yeah.
It's still in the Lords, and I think he actually started it. I then, for whatever reason, ended up taking over the all-party parliamentary group, and we really drove it forward. We had a number of employees. We would make sure that government really felt the heat of it. At the time, I wasn't in the government at that particular moment in time, so I had time, and I devoted it to trying to ensure that aviation got a fair hearing.
So we had you were basically, I guess, the first big thing you did that we noticed on the outside, I think, was probably the red tape challenge. There was probably a lot more, but we've forgotten about it. But
yeah, so in aviation, the red tape challenge was the thing. And actually what happened was I had the opportunity in cabinet to sign off, any new policies. And a policy came in front of me one day about, we were trying to deregulate at the time, generally across the economy. And one was about aviation. It had like two things in it. One was to, just cancel some policy that, was on the books, didn't need to be there, wasn't being used. And I said, I'm not signing this off because I happen to know this sector, and I know it's massively poorly regulated, massively so, with all sorts of bizarre kind of nuances. And the government literally said, and I was a minister without portfolio, well, in which case, why don't you do the red tape challenge on it? We'll welcome it. And that's how that came about.
And I mean, out of the things that you achieved during your kind of focus on general aviation, what do you think was probably the biggest or the most positive thing that you?
Gosh,
it's not a trick question, but there's
and it's kind of this is now obviously more than 10 years ago, or about 10 plus years ago. It's hard to remember, but there were lots of different elements to this. For example, we tried to establish the fact that general aviation, so often thought of as just a sort of frivolous, I hated when people just could call it a hobby pastime, or worse still, I would sometimes get described all the way through my political career as an amateur pilot. As if you can have pilots in the sky, they're amateurs, not fully trained professionals, right? So, or at least, fully trained. So we try to establish, for example, the value of aviation, general aviation. I think it turned out to be a £3.4 billion, what they call a GVA, so a value added to the economy. And I think that was kind of important. And then lots and lots of smaller things. So, for example, it seemed a nonsense to anyone who knew anything about aviation. If you take something like the 90-day rule, perfectly sensible rule that it's a good idea to be on your own if you haven't flown for a bit rather than taking passengers up. So there's a 3 takeoff and landings rule. Perfectly sensible. But how can it make it less safe, for example, to have another qualified pilot sitting next to you? And yet the 90-day rule at the time excluded qualified pilots sitting next to you. The one thing that might have been helpful was excluded by the rules. And then there were many other things like that. So, I challenged the department to prove to me, or the departments, I mean, it was transport, cabinet office, to prove to me that the problem with aviation is that, by comparison with people driving cars, was that in aviation people were having heart attacks, falling out the sky and killing people, as opposed to people driving cars. And since there was absolutely no data that could demonstrate that was true, I said that you shouldn't need to always have a Class 2 medical if what you're flying is what was, I think, still or is now rather an LAA aircraft. So if you're flying uncertified, we introduced the idea that you could have a declaration, the same as you do to drive a car. And I just don't know why in aviation we have to overcomplicate everything to the nth degree. Obviously, sometimes very good reasons, safety and the rest of it. A lot of it, though, I'm afraid, just comes about almost through superstition rather than hard evidence. So I tried to sort of make sure the government was following the facts. So I think the red tape challenge was a good point, and then obviously I was able to follow it up a lot more when I was in government. But I'm afraid regulation is rather like Japanese knotweed or something. As soon as you stop chopping it away, it starts to grow again. And I've noticed that, and I think it's fair to say the interest may have diverted to other areas right now. And I think it's a shame. We won't be able to train pilots if we don't do this. We won't be able to have innovation. We won't be able to teach all those STEM pieces of knowledge if we carry on closing airfields. If we think it doesn't matter to our country, then we're condemning ourselves to a very dull and unimpressive future, in my view.
Sorry. It just seems like a good time for this question from Mike Roberts, who says, Mr. Shapps, with the UK aviation industry is currently a shadow of its former self. What inspires people now? Airbus making another wing is not as exciting as the development we did in years gone by. And he says, how do we improve innovation?
Yeah, and I this really worries me, actually. I mean, I literally spent nearly 20 years representing a constituency, 19 years representing the constituency that built the Comet aircraft. Both the Comet aircrafts, the old one and the world's first jet airliner. In fact, when you enter Hatfield, there are signs to this day that say home of the world's first jet airliner. And, Hatfield, as you know, is no longer there. We don't produce entire airliners by and large. You can argue about whether there are any exceptions to that. I think that's a real pity. Now, it is true to say that we are incredibly specialized in some areas, including building wings, as your questioner points out. And actually, probably by volume, because Airbus is so dominant, actually, having sort of really whipped Boeing's ass, we probably actually produce a lot by value in aviation. But I think there's some really interesting smaller businesses. There's one called Zero Aviation, who I was very aware of as a minister. I still know the guys there now, and they were trying to, and still are, trying to build hydrogen engines. They're doing it in Britain. It's an American company who are doing it in Britain. It's the other way around, the way you might expect. There's some fantastic innovation going on, but you have to really root around. And I think some of this is just the wider problems in our economy. If you chase people who are the kind of engineers, the productivity, the wealth creators out the country, you kind of get the country you deserve. And I think we've done that for too many years.
So we're just getting back to the whole regulation thing, and I like your description of some of the regulations seem to have been built on superstition. Obviously, you had to work with the CAA. How was that? Was that at all frustrating, or?
Well, yes and no. I mean, I appointed the current chair of the CAA. No idea how Mr. Hillier is getting on, but he was my appointment. It depends. It depended what stage I was at. So I've really described 3 different stages here. One of which I was a minister without portfolio and did the Red Shape Challenge. A second where I was a backbench MP, but maybe had the most influence actually, because the all-party parliamentary group led. And still does lead a significant number of MPs. It's still going to this day, still has all its subgroups running. And then finally, I was the position that really should have given me the maximum power, is when I was able to appoint a chair of the CAA. And that was as Secretary of State for Transport. What do I think of the CAA? Some very, very good people there, some very good people, but too many people who kind of think like, a sort of, not to be disparaging, but a civil service block. So if you're not looking all the time to find ways to cut the bureaucracy, make things faster, etc., then instead what you're doing is really just perfecting, whatever your personal job is or role is. And that usually is not much about the customer. It's more about the internal organization. So CAA can be good. They sometimes are able to do things remarkably well and quickly. I was very keen to see that we at least tried to do some space launch, and it didn't work. We had the Virgin Orbit, and the CAA were excellent at getting through what were very complex regulatory issues. We'd never tried to launch something into space from the UK previously. They can be very good. I know that they've sped up, I think I'm right in saying, they've sped up a lot of the licensing stuff now. But in other areas, I think it still can be really, hopeless. I don't know exactly what it's like now. I haven't had to submit any forms for a while, but the number of forms you have to sort of scan, and there's still PDFs and that sort of thing. But you guys may be able to correct me if it's all gone digital. The last time I did my renewal 2 years ago, coming up 2 years ago, it still felt pretty clockwork to me.
It's a bit of half and half. It kind of depends. There's a transition. I think commercial licenses have moved to a little bit more digital. Yeah. But I mean, things like the Airfield Advisory Team has been announced that's been disbanded, for example. I don't know whether that was something that you set up or someone at the CAA set it up.
Yeah, no. I personally persuaded the CAA to set it up because we are losing heritage that we can never ever get back. And unfortunately, I think it's a very short-sighted view that closes those types of things down.
I think that had some link to Flyer magazine's Seconds of Fame. I think this is back in 2021, so a while ago now. Sandra Lorena wrote complaining about you, but she did.
Well, unfortunately, this is sort of nonsense you have to put up with. So for your viewers who won't remember this, your letters reminded me. So I thought, and I still think, it's right to have in the Civil Aviation Authority, the body that looks after aviation, and even this government says should be in charge of growth in this country as a regulator, a team of experts who understand about airfields and how we need to protect and keep them open. Otherwise, we will not have an aviation sector. And what does the now Deputy Prime Minister do back then? She writes to the head of propriety and ethics and claims that somehow it's illegitimate for the Secretary of State to want to have airfields in this country, the Secretary of State for Transport to want to have airfields in this country. And what a load of absolute tosh. I mean, I can probably say it a bit clearer now than I could at the time. Can you believe I was being accused as the Secretary of State for Transport for doing something for transport? It is just total, utter nonsense.
I mean, to be honest...
And by the way, was completely dismissed as well, of course, in the end.
Yeah, I wasn't too worried about you being criticised. I was pleased with the fact that Flyer magazine actually got a mention in that
Quite
letter.
Right. Quite right.
Which I thought, blimey, oh, there you go. So, I mean, how do you, having had all that experience, how do you see the future of general aviation in the UK now? Are you optimistic?
So I do think it, as I said before, it's like this thing that you just have to keep chopping away the bureaucracy at, otherwise it just ends up strangling it. I'm a bit half and half. I'll tell you why. I think there's some very exciting things happening in aviation. There are many more. There's a sort of innovation that comes in through things like, I fly a certified aircraft, so I have the top end of the sort of bureaucracy, as it were, to deal with. But I think in the certified, the non-certified world, there's some really interesting stuff. So when I go around and I see, at Sywell or wherever they happen to hold the show, some of these LAA stuff, new avionics, really nicely built, new materials. I think there's excitement there. You also get a lot of airfields just sort of springing up that are used. But I think the greater concern on balance is the sort of complete indifference to the closure of airfields, which means that a youngster who looks up to the sky and goes, "Hey, mum, dad, is that something I could do?" If you don't have airfields for them to be taken to see an air show, to get inspired, to become a air cadet or whatever, then we cannot train our people. And not being able to train our people will affect the future of aviation. And there's so much talent in this country for aviation. I do think we have a natural fit to aviation. That would be a great shame. But as I say, I don't think it's all negative. The skies are very busy. The airports, after the dreadful COVID period, are, broadly speaking, getting busier again, and particularly on the commercial side. And I think there needs to be a greater link between the commercial side and the grassroots. I think it's a bit like the Premier football teams have a responsibility to make sure Sunday League football carries on in the park near you. And I think that same responsibility should and could exist between the big airfields and the undergrowth of aviation.
So a question that a few people have asked when they found out you were coming on, have asked us to ask you, and I guess it kind of relates to, we're coming back to your own aircraft here. There's a whole bunch of people who want to know, well, okay, so how come you had an NREG aircraft? And my supplementary question to that, I mean, I've got an NREG aircraft as well. My supplementary question to that is, would there have been a point where you would have changed it onto the G-Reg?
So it was an NREG because just when I got it, it was on the NREG. I have had G-Reg, two G-Reg aircraft before this one. This aircraft is 41 years old this year, but it's on the NREG. I have no particular reason to move it off the NREG. And really, my challenge to the CAA was force me onto a G-Reg, but do it not by compulsion. Do it because it's good for people in aviation to be on a G-Reg, and actually more advantageous to be on a G-Reg than an NREG, right? So it'd be, that was always my challenge. Why is it that NREGs stay on NREGs? Well, we all know the reasons, because they take a more practical view on the NREG of what it means to be in general aviation, in my view. So we're not flying airliners. We don't have commercial pilot licenses. We're not charging people to travel. People understand that you're therefore operating at a level which is not in the same category. And all too often, I think that the regulators take general aviation, particularly the G-Reg, and they think of it as just a smaller version of an Airbus. so therefore we'll regulate it in the same way. It's clearly not that, and I think the Americans, in their wisdom, do it better. So my challenge was that don't do it through compulsion. Do it because I would want to take the time and effort to swap. In truth, if it was on a G-Reg, I would have left it on the G-Reg. It's like a car being imported, and if I hadn't, if I happened to drive a French car or something, I probably wouldn't change the registration plate unless there was a compelling reason to do so. So that would be my answer.
Moving on. I'm only saying moving on because I've got an NREG too, and I haven't. Mine was on the G-Reg, and I changed from the G-Reg to the NREG.
You did it. You actually did it proactively, yeah. Well, it just aviation is global. That's why we have ICAO.
Yeah, I did it for various reasons.
It doesn't really matter, does it?
No, I mean, I don't want to. I'm not going to take up your time in explaining why I did it. But if anyone wants to know, I'll happily explain in the future. A couple of things that you probably, I'm assuming you were probably in favour of, if not directly responsible for, that I was a bit miffed about, really. One, somewhere along the line, we managed to lose the EGNOS, the right to use the EGNOS signal, and it seems to me that we could probably still get that back for not very much money, instead of spending what is a rather larger amount of money for something that's not going to come into service, if at all, but not for a long time.
Yeah. So obviously I wasn't in favour of losing EGNOS. In fact, we worked very, very hard to try not to lose EGNOS. For those not familiar, it's a satellite system which makes the accuracy of I think the vertical navigation better on instrument approaches. And when we left Europe, wanted to stay in it. In fact, there are EGNOS stations in the UK. In fact, it still works in the UK. So if you are using instruments to land a GPS land, it will still be picking up the EGNOS system. The difference is it's not certified to use. So you can't use it for a lower descent. And the problem was actually just the EU just flatly refused to let us use it, and then tried to charge an extortionate amount of money. I think it was 38 million, but I might just be misremembering the number. I think in truth, though, I'd be interested to hear from instrument-rated pilots if this is untrue. But I think by and large, it hasn't made an enormous difference, not least because I don't think there were that many approaches that used it. However, open to be proved wrong. The Treasury wasn't up for paying extortionate amounts of money. The EU were having a strop. I hope it's one of these things that can be sorted out in time, either by rejoining that or by our own system going up.
Okay. Secondly, the other thing, and I know there are many people who disagree with me in this, but leaving EASA, it kind of makes sense to come from a national point of view, and in many ways makes some sense from a GA point of view. But for the commercial people out there, we were talking about the British Airways thing earlier, there's an awful lot of those people who are in a position where they have to take on more debt to be dual licensed. And there's kind of not, even though we're following exactly the same course, it appeared that because of the E at the beginning of EASA, there was no way that we could really have anything to do with them. So there was no pragmatism, it appeared, and the political will kind of caused a bunch of individuals quite a lot of extra spending and awkwardness.
Yeah, no, absolutely true. But we wanted to continue, and the EU just flatly refused. Again, they were just having a struggle. I didn't actually personally vote for Brexit, but I thought their attitude towards it was just ridiculous. Aviation is international. Our laws, our training, our approach was identical to theirs. There are plenty of non-EU countries that belong to EASA. Well, not plenty, but some. And yet, for some reason, the country that had precisely the same rules wasn't allowed to belong. And I'm afraid they were just having a bit of a strop about it. Look, I think with all of these, that wasn't a British decision, that was them. But I think with all of these things, we have to look where we can take advantages, and there are some advantages, and we were able to perhaps regulate a little bit differently. And if only we would grab those advantages with both hands, we could really use it to our benefit. For example, there's a 600 kilo, I think, limit on certain types of experimental aircraft. that's what it happens to be in Europe. Why don't we make the UK the part of experimental by pushing it higher, or have we?
No, we've adopted the 600.
No, we've adopted, of course, because what we've done instead is just adopted what everyone else has done in Europe, right? That is not using our competitive advantage. Our competitive advantage would be, you know what? Never mind 600. We're going to make it 1200. We'll put these safety things in place, but we're going to make it higher, and then we're going to attract the very best, the types that go to, some of the most productive countries at the moment to produce. Czech Republic, I don't know, they seem to be extremely good at this stuff. Why don't we make our legislative framework more attractive than the Czech Republic, who, by the way, are then locked into EASA and can't do this, and take some competitive advantages? And instead, I don't know, we just about managed to do exactly the same as is already being done everything else. I think it's that lack of ambition that I find extremely frustrating, because we've been cut free. It has some disadvantages, as you rightly say. Why don't we go and pick up the advantages and really excel in the sector?
I suspect there are probably many people at the moment just pointing out the fact that unfortunately we have a relatively small market internally, the UK market, if you like, for ultralights, microlights, whatever you want to call them, whatever the name is. And so, we could do 1,200 kilos, but the people would only be able to sell it to the UK at the moment.
Look, I use just one example, right? It doesn't have to be that. But the point is, if you want to create an ecosystem where you are attractive to invest in and innovate in and what have you, then you need to use all the regulatory advantages you've got, as well as providing financial incentives to do it. And instead, I find it sort of depressing that rather than using the freedom, we cage ourselves in, which seems to me to be a rather stupid policy.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna move on the basis that we're going to run out of time if we're not careful. There's a whole bunch of questions, I assume. I've just got a couple quick more questions for you, just kind of short fire answers on these ones. You were, and this is just personal interest, I hope everyone else will be interested as well. You were Secretary of State for Transport, Secretary of State for Defence, and for 6 or 7 days you were
Home Secretary.
Home Secretary, that's the one, yeah. Which one of those caused you to lose most sleep?
I was also Business Secretary and Energy and Net Zero Secretary as well. So I ended up having more Secretary of State jobs than anyone since, I think, Jim Callaghan, who was Prime Minister in the 70s. Defence, without any doubt at all. Once you've had the responsibility of, quite literally the nation's nuclear secrets, and you become what's called a nuclear deputy as Defence Secretary, you see the world somewhat differently, unsurprisingly. So I think that would be the one that did keep me up at night.
Is it more frustrating now, having the insight but without the fingers on?
Well, I look, I keep a very close interest, particularly on news like we've seen on Ukraine today from Trump, which makes me incredibly uneasy. In fact, though, I texted my successor, John Healey, who's the Labour Defence Secretary, earlier today. He's just texted me back. I see not only is it his birthday, but he's at NATO dealing with the things that I would have been doing last year. And this is where, and one of the reasons I like defence so much is it really it crosses politics, right? You work together very closely on issues of national security like that.
Okay. I've got a couple of pictures from your time as Defence Secretary. I imagine I'm going to rush through these because I really want to get to the Q&A thing. So if you give us a quick commentary while they're running, that would be good.
Now that looks like an A400, I'm going to say, in the jump seat there.
Yeah, so that would have been. Yes.
Yeah, that's it.
That was probably more interesting, but less comfortable than this one.
That is a very nice it's a Falcon and Dassault Falcon, and there are two of those. They have almost identical registrations and impeccable service from the RAF. They belong to the MOD, or run by rather the RAF, and so all other ministers essentially ask the Defence Secretary's permission to go on their jets.
Different kind of suit on this one.
I rather enjoyed flying this machine. It's one of the very few two-seaters. I think there may only be 4 of them. It's a Typhoon, of course. And I went up to do what's called the QRA, which is also known as a DANA. And it's the thing which is a 24/7 watch for stray aircraft into our airspace. It happens about once a month that there's a stray aircraft, usually just a transponder malfunctioning or a radio tuned to the wrong frequency. But the ultimate decision makers are the Prime Minister and the Defence Secretary, and one of you, sometimes some other members of the Cabinet, high senior members, have to be on duty 24 hours a day. So you'd be by your phone in case something happened, and you give the ultimate executive authority to shoot down a passenger airliner. That's done from a couple of typhoons. You're trained for it. And part of my extended training, I think largely because I was already a pilot, was to go up in the typhoon and fly the typhoon and go through a simulated. There was another aircraft up there, and we simulated firing on that aircraft, which is one of the more harrowing, not flying in the typhoon, but making that kind of decision.
I was going to say,
more harrowing things to do as a defence secretary.
Taking that decision sounds like a horrible job. But this picture here is the one where I think you look the most concerned.
Now, I like that picture for two reasons. One, I'm obviously at Lasham in a glider. The second is I didn't realise until I went to Lasham to do that gliding. I forget roughly. I think that was when I was in the chairing the all-party parliamentary group, if I remember rightly, that day. And I remembered when I was there that my very first ever experience in general aviation was as a scout, where we did a trip to Lasham, and I went in a glider. So it was the place that had spurred my interest, and I've forgotten entirely that that's where it happened until I was there again.
Cool. Well, that's the end of the questions that I've noted down. We've busted over, but I can't see the comments on my screen.
Okay, I've flagged a few, and we may have to go through and may have to be very quick answers. Sky Driller says, was there anything Mr. Shapps wanted to achieve with regard to GA that the CAA or anyone else stopped happening?
Oh yeah, plenty of things actually. The kind of yes minister is not just a sort of, it's a documentary. It's true, and there are many things. I struggle to think what they are. There were some things that we did do just very briefly that I didn't mention, which was change the law to enable people to go up in historic aircraft like. And go and experience what it's like to fly in a Spitfire, for example, which opened up the market for a lot more renovation of Spitfires, and we've ended up with a lot more of them as a result. Interestingly, though, I have never been up in a Spitfire. That was merely me sitting in one. I think that's at Duxford.
There we go. Aviator Steve says, there are not many engineers under the age of 60. It's a looming crisis. Any thoughts?
I suspect it's a little bit like the party that I happen to represent, that tends to represent older people, the Conservatives. And no matter when you look at it, it always looks like it's quite old. But fortunately, older people just keep growing up into it. Fortunately, from the point of view of a party, I suspect it's similar in aviation, where I do think we should be worried about this, by the way, but it is probably the case that it's a job that people maybe go into later. I don't know. It is one of the reasons, though, why I'm so keen to open the government's eyes, this government now as well as the previous ones, to the fact that we need to attract young people into aviation.
Steve Newdown very quickly says, I'm the lead for the airspace working group on the APPG. Can Grant help me frame a parliamentary question to reinstate EGNOS? Safety of life to be underwritten by the UK government.
Very, very good. Well, ChatGPT probably can help even better than me. But well done, Steve, for doing that. It's great to know that the APPG airspace working group is still going after all these years, and I'm really pleased to hear that. I'm very happy to try. I can tell you about what limited amount I know from the period where we lost it. If it's helpful, by all means, contact me. Grant@shapps.com if you want to contact me.
Cool. Okay. And finally, John Gibbon says, what's the future of airfields being designated as brownfield sites? That wasn't always the case. Isn't it time to reinstate greenfield status?
This is a really, really complicated issue, and I'll tell you why. If you designate them only greenfield, then you can prevent the airfield from itself developing and therefore make it unsustainable. So there is a benefit to them being brownfield, as long as it is to use it as a brownfield site to develop things which support the aviation. So actually, I discovered, having started by thinking, as your commentator did, that the only way was to have it as greenfield, that actually that's not always the right answer to this question. It's a bit more nuanced. Planning law, of course, hugely complicated, which is one of the reasons.
And finally, Adrian Norris asks, are there any GA pilots left in the House of Commons?
I don't know. Sorry, my cat here is wants to make an appearance.
Shouldn't you be like stroking?
If you're wondering why the flag keeps moving, this is the reason.
That cat is unimpressed.
I actually don't know if there are GA pilots left in the House of Commons. I do know that the All-Party Parliamentary Group, the APPG, is currently chaired by a Labour MP. I don't think I know the MP. I think they're a new one. I don't know whether that MP has a particular interest in aviation or is indeed a pilot, but I haven't done the survey, so I'm afraid. And not being there, it's a little harder to find out.
Cool. I think have we got?
Yeah, we've blasted through the questions.
It's 8:30. We normally finish at 8:30. We've got a couple of items left to go. So thank you hugely for coming along and talking to us. We look forward to.
Thanks, guys. Big fan of the show, as they say. Keep up the great work.
Thank you. Good luck with the Saratoga. Enjoy flying. I'll probably see you at an airfield or a farm strip somewhere at some stage. And we can.
No doubt.
Thank you very much. If you happen to be around at the end, you can help judge. But if not, don't worry because we've overrun quite a bit. So thank you.
Nice to meet you all. Thanks.
There you go.
We're going to blitz through Fancy Hangar very quickly. So this week, seeing that the JMB had added the slow delight of the Stomp, a microlight to its stay alongside the VL3, which is speedy, we thought, hey, let's go looking in the classifieds for our best fast and slow GA combo. So who's first?
Annabelle's up first. We're going to go slow fast this way. So okay. Annabelle, yes, slow one.
Okay. My pairing spans the absolute best of 1940s aviation. For slow, I have chosen the Ryan PT-22, powered by a 160 horsepower radial engine with tandem seating. It cruises at a respectable 90 knots. And for sale, I have found the first ever serial number 1 and flown by Mr. Ryan himself. To go with it, my fast choice is a Beech Staggerwing, 450 horsepower, also radial powered, but luxury aircraft cruising at 180 knots with plush seating for 5. And the one I found was the last built, owned by Walter Beech himself. It's also red.
It's my favourite of all the Staggerwings. The G model is the most beautiful.
Well, I think these make a delightful duo. We've got fun and quirky and elegant and refined. Who wouldn't want to own the first and last of these two legendary aircraft? This is not Fantasy Hangar. This is living history.
Very good. Dave.
Well, Annabelle stole my aircraft because I also wanted a Ryan PT-22. This one's for sale in Germany for €67,000, which I think is money well spent. 1941 aircraft in US Navy colours, fitted with the same 160 horsepower Kinner engine. This one's got some modern Trig avionics and there's loads of spares, and it's currently in annual. For my fast aircraft, it's a no-brainer. It has to be the Diamond DA62. And I found this one for sale with Gemstone Aviation. They're the UK agent up at Gamston Airfield. The DA62 got a cruise speed of 180 knots at 12,000 feet. It's got a maximum range of nearly 1,300 nautical miles, a ceiling of 20,000 feet. This is a real go-places aeroplane. And I have actually flown one. And it's brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
It's not red though, is it, Dave?
Sorry, not red. No.
Me, I've gone for these two beauties. So my slow choice is the 95 knot de Havilland Dragon DH84. This was up for sale in Australia. I think it was this. No, this is New Zealand. It's got 245 horsepower Gypsy Major engines. And I think that's just a good slow choice. It's slow. You can take a bunch of mates with you. When you need to go fast, I found this. It's a Spartan Executive, 190 knots for 900 nautical miles. And this is from 1937, a 450 horsepower engine, just like Annabelle's Staggerwing. And I reckon those would be two good choices, my fast and slow stable.
Absolutely, not bad choices. Well, I went looking. I have to admit, the first one I chose, my slow one, is not actually airworthy. You got restored it. Absolutely beautiful flying flea. This is beautiful. I mean, look at that. Look at the quality of that restoration. This one was up for auction. How much do you reckon it went for at the auction?
I don't know. Did they pay you to take it away?
£4.95.
It's absolutely beautiful. That went for 17,000 euros at the auction. I mean, that's gorgeous, isn't it? Don't you think?
Does it flap its wings to take off?
No. You have no soul, any of you. And for my fast one, I went for the SX300. Look at that, 240 knots, no problem. Viennese, I think 250. So 240 gives you not a huge amount of margin, but absolutely beautiful airplane. Wing the size of a front door, really, and not much more. So
yeah, less wing than a 152 with way more power. So
yeah, 300.
That is its red.
Right.
And,
Ed, while you're looking through the comments, we'll just get Dave to give us a quick rattle on any events.
Okay.
Right. So, on the events this weekend, 15th, 16th of February, there's an aviation memorabilia fair at Manchester Airport. The night's flying at Slape, which was to be tonight, has moved to the 20th of February next week because of weather. There's a Gasco safety evening at Rough Wolf on the 20th of February. And the next flying is, apart from the Slape one, is at the Winter Warmer at Wickenby on the 22nd of February.
Okay, great. We'll get Grant back on and see whether Grant's got any...
We need to do the comments first. Very quickly, Dave was doing well till the DA62. James says, good start from Annabelle. Pete said, I'd have a 100 horsepower Cub at a Quest Air Venture. Strong second place for Dave. You were doing well until the Diamond, Dave. Ed wins tonight. What else have we got? One of the UK Spartans is for sale. Contact Mark Jeffries. There we go. There's an offer you can't refuse. Ed wins. Ian, it's a converted sidecar offer. Norton, surely. Ed wins because I need to get over their stagger wing obsession, Annabelle. So
yeah,
Ed wins and Annabelle. Oh, I am surprised. I thought Annabelle might have it tonight. Oh, there we go. Annabelle tonight. Ian wins. Annabelle it is. Annabelle wins. There's a dragon for sale at Rendcombe. Wow, we can start actually filling out a fancy hangar.
A proper fancy hangar. Grant, any ideas? Any thoughts?
No, I just love them all. Anything with, wings on it that can fly. So maybe that thing with the sidecar on. I don't catch what that was. Not airworthy.
It was a flying flea. It was a flying flea restoration from the 30s. Look at that. That's beautiful. Absolutely stunning.
My eyes.
Well, look, Henry Minier in the 30s kind of decided I need to build an airplane that's easy to fly, that's easy to build, that anyone can build without any special skills, and that's cheap. And that's what he came up with. And it kind of more or less was, sort of.
It looks the sort of thing you could crash quite easily as well.
It was, sorry, Dave?
It looks the sort of thing you could crash quite easily as well.
I think they used to crash themselves.
Yeah, and if you sit in it, though, at least you haven't got to look at it.
That's true.
Oh, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, people. Right, in that case, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us tonight. Thank you very much, Grant. Thank you very much, team. Have a great weekend flying. Enjoy your flying tomorrow, because I think Simon said that's going to be the best day. We'll be back on Wednesday, if you're a member. If not, why not? It's only £5 a month. And we'll see you on Wednesday afternoon for the Skype stream, and next Thursday evening where we'll learn all about the Manchester low-level Northwest Transition Passage or something. On that basis, thank you very much, everybody. We will see you next time.
Hello, this video is sponsored by us, the Flyer Club. And if you're not a member already, we'd love for you to join.
Members get access to all of our content, our free landing fees every month, exclusive webinars, and much, much more.
It costs just £5 per month to become a member, so head on over to flyer.co.uk/membership or click the link in the description below.
It's a proper good deal.
It's a bargain.